Why do you feel stuck even when you know so much? It's not your stuck, it's your state. For builders who nailed the tech and now face the rest, this is Uncoded, translating tech into profit. Hello, good evening. We are here with Chris Hood. Chris is a former executive in Google. He wrote a book recently which title is Infailible, and I'm very happy to have you here, Chris, and I would like to learn a little bit more about this book and what is the discussion behind it and what is your contribution to it.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm excited to talk about it. I'll give you the quick high-level overview, and then we can dive into it a little bit more. But the book Infailible is a look at the artificial intelligence ideology that is reshaping consumer behavior. And I wrote it because as I was seeing the massive increase of people talking about AI, I started to realize that not only was it overly hyped, but there was a lot of misinformation. There was a misunderstanding of what artificial intelligence actually is and what it's actually capable of doing, and then how that is impacting the marketplace and consumers, because all of a sudden overnight, people were jumping on the artificial intelligence bandwagon and pushing AI out into all of these new areas and features and marketing campaigns. And I really wanted to explore why this was happening for a technology that has basically been out for over 60 years. And so the book has been hugely successful so far. I hit #1 bestseller in artificial intelligence on Amazon. I think I've sold over 5,000 copies. It was just released a couple months ago. So doing very well. It's definitely a timely topic and something that I enjoy talking about.
Okay, what do you think about the application of AI in marketing? Do you think that what you see around, I see a lot of automation-based tools which are labeled as agent, but for me they are more or less normal software that do prescriptive steps with already known technology. So they are not really very smart as we suppose they are.
Yeah, sure. There's a couple of sides to this. So just to touch on what you're talking about, this is one of the areas that people misunderstand about artificial intelligence. As of today, everything in artificial intelligence is basically automation. There is no true, we'll call it intelligence. It is even machine learning is all an automation process. Everything that has been programmed in is goal-oriented. And so it could be very complex. It could seem very realistic. But when you sort through all of that, it's all just glorified automation. And it's definitely revolutionary automation, but that's still all it is. So that's the first thing. And I think if you can wrap your head around that, it's a good starting point. From a marketing perspective, what we're seeing is that, yes, automation is becoming a part of it. Unfortunately, at the expense, we go back to consumer behavior, and at the expense of consumerism, we're removing people from conversations. We're automating the technical support or troubleshooting types of processes. I kind of correlate it to self-checkout at grocery stores. If you go to a grocery store, you go through self-checkout, you're doing it on your own. You could say, well, that's a form of automation. It's a form of automation because you don't have to go and actually have somebody help you, right? And so there's a cost reduction there for a business. And so all of this kind of boils up. And we think about how that impacts us in our daily lives in terms of, on one hand, yes, it's optimizing a lot of things. It's helping us get through things faster, that automation process is really accelerating how we build businesses and manage businesses. It's accelerating our day-to-day activities. But as consumers, we still are looking for some level of human connection. And this is critical when we think about marketing, because if we overly automate that process and we drive away that human connection, we're actually seeing that people, we as consumers, are going away from those companies that are overly automating, and we're participating or going and purchasing from brands that actually still have that human connection. And I think it's critical from a marketing perspective, from a operations perspective, from a support perspective. And so I think that's an area that people have to, be aware of, especially businesses, how much automation is too much automation.
Yeah, because, you can automate also disaster, basically.
Yeah.
Without even realizing it. While you were discussing, I was thinking that, it is very nice that we have similar idea with this kind of discussions, because, I remember preparing my dissertation back in 1994, and I chose to do it with neural network, with machine learning, because, that gave me the idea of a technology. I was willing to try a technology that was not forcing execution of task on an individual, but was adaptive, and also was adaptive as a human can be. So it is smartly adaptive and distributed. While, today AI is absolutely not distributed, because we have these big companies, OpenAI, Microsoft, they build large language model where they invest always more money. They are building gigantic technology. So exactly the opposite. And I think that this is not the end of the evolution of AI, because sooner or later, the dimension of this technology will be too high to control. And I would like to understand, what do you think about this? Do you think that there is a technological limit in the evolution of AI, or they will manage to force this in some way?
Yeah, it's a good question, and the appropriate way to look at it is that the evolution of artificial intelligence will highly depend upon the evolution of other technologies. And so if we look at our current state of like ChatGPT or other large language models, those have been around for over 20 years. I mean, the first chatbot was invented in 1966. Transformers started in the 2000s. And so large language models is definitely not new. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, then what has happened in the course of the last 5 years that has made this such a huge technology leap? And really, the way to look at this is that it's become the accessibility of LLMs and AI, generative AI models, that has catapulted it in the way that we're seeing it today. That means that we have faster computers, the internet is faster, access to data is faster, the amount of data that we have available for training is more abundant. Those are the reasons why generative AI models today are so popular. Not because generative AI models are popular.
Yes.
They're old. It's the access and the other technologies around that have accelerated this process. So then if we look at the future and we say, okay, where are we heading? And there are areas like AGI, artificial general intelligence, autonomy, which in theoretical opinions, autonomy does not exist in artificial intelligence today.
No,
How are
absolutely.
we going to achieve those? We even talk about things like sentient. Will a machine ever be able to think and feel on its own? All of these kind of scientific or sci-fi, perspectives. Well, in order to achieve those, we are going to have faster systems. So we think about quantum computing. Quantum computing could drastically change the perspectives of artificial intelligence and probably help us reach AGI. We start to think about moral reasoning and how are we going to incorporate that. That's going to require probably a new technology that we haven't even invented yet. And so all of this is really based on other factors. I think too many people are focused on, well, if we can just train AI to do this, we'll unlock it. But you're going to have processors, data, right? Speed, access, all of security, all of those things are going to be required for us to unlock that continuous evolution.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have been recently writing an article on LinkedIn about AI orchestration, because what I see is that, we will be at the right stage where we can think about and talk about smart technology when we will have independent agent which work in an independent, unsupervised way, doing simple task, and they will communicate with each other, being able to complete a flow made of different subtasks. This is a smart technology. What we have today is not a smart technology. Is exactly the same paradigm that IT have been having for the last 70 years, for 80 years. The funny story is that it seems if you look about the status of the industry, it seems that they speak and they think like this could be happening in the next 2-3 years, which is absolutely not the case. And the people that know technology knows perfectly that this is impossible in 2-3 years. But still, you see these guys building startup, feeling themselves at the edge, but actually not doing. I don't want to say that they are not doing anything relevant, but there is a lot more to do in the future, according to me, than building agents that are basically programmed to do some task. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, think about the internet as an example, right?
And in fact, the internet is a clear example of this.
Yeah, if we look at the evolution of the internet and technology, connection-based technology, right? We went from, and I'll just kind of accelerate it, but we went from the internet and websites to all of a sudden we had cloud-based systems, and we went, everybody had to kind of get online, and the introduction of SaaS and various types of platforms, all because now I didn't need some big data center. Everything was kind of compressed. I was able to spin up servers on demand quicker. Like these Kubernetes, all of these different types of technologies that have come about in the last 10 years helped accelerate that online capability for us, which then, as I've said, unlocked the ability for ChatGPT to become a pocket-sized artificial intelligence for us. Now, if we kind of compare that over the course of, say, 1995 to 2005 to 2015 to 2025, and break that down in terms of what kind of changes we've seen on just the internet, web, Web 2, Web 3 we're talking about. We would have to say that, okay, there's basically 10-year gaps between the next big technology that helps us to unlock whatever the next big thing is. And if we simply accelerated that and we said only access and speed, we're at 5G, all of a sudden we'll say 6G, 7G, whatever we want to say, and we theoretically start to map this out. And if we say we've got a 10-year space between where we are today and the next iteration of the internet, and then we say, well, let's just accelerate it and cut it in half, we're still at 5 years. We're at 5 years before the next major change in technology will enable us to have faster-based technologies for whatever artificial intelligence needs. Yeah. That doesn't include the data and the security and the speed and all of those other things. That's just the foundation, the infrastructure of supporting whatever it is. And now, of course, we've heard that the amount of infrastructure that we need to support whatever artificial intelligence of the future, energy consumption, nuclear powered, whatever that looks like, is also another leap in technology that we have not achieved yet, that we have to figure out. So as you start to map this out, and people who are like, oh, well, we're going to unlock AGI in the next 2 years, we may, I'm not saying that that's not possible, but it's also possible that we may not. It may be 20 years before we're able to unlock AGI because of other factors that are required within that. It might be as simple as, well, we just need quantum computing to be able to unlock AGI. Well, okay, we've got a lot of great quantum computing systems, but at what point in time will we get quantum computing in the palm of our hands, right? And our mobile devices? I don't know. And no one else does.
No one else does. Yes, absolutely. No one else does. It seems that, everybody is looking for something to happen in the next 2 months, 3 months. And the funny things, as I work as a coach and I work with founders, the funny thing is that you see these young guys building whatever they are building. They don't have time. Well, they always have no time to talk about anything. But also, they don't care about money. I mean, for them, the technology is the only goal. They don't care about building a business viable company as it should be. And this is very similar to the first period of the new economy. I remember a guy coming in Italy from California, and during a seminar, this guy told us that, there was no need of building a business plan for a venture on the internet because, the business plan was going to be old in 1 week, 2 weeks. It is exactly the same. And I think that this is very, very wrong. But, although we know that is wrong, we continue to do things always in the same way, because nowadays, you know better than me, there is, kind of a lot of money flowing in this type of venture, and so everybody got excited about this money, and they try to do this, the other, try to do that. I think that sometimes we are losing control of the direction we are taking. What do you think?
Yeah, I sort of see two sides of it. I see the side you're talking about, which is let's just invest in this technology and hope that it becomes something. And if it becomes something, we'll make a lot of money. Don't kid yourself. There's money behind there somewhere. There's a financial strategy behind there somewhere. But the flip side of it is there's also a lot of people who are jumping on this bandwagon to create AI companies, and all they care about is a money grab, right? Like, how fast can I spin something up, make as much money as I can off of it, and if it fails, that's okay, I'm on to the next thing. right? And if it, I mean, I've seen several businesses last about 3 months, but they still make about $50,000, $100,000, and then they pocket that and they move on to the next thing, right?
And they run away. Yeah.
You know, and what's really interesting is the amount of trust that we've placed in artificial intelligence to support these ideas. I've suggested a few times now, imagine if OpenAI was to go out of business tomorrow. And I'm not just talking like go out of business. It could be any number of things. Sold,
Absolutely.
acquired, you know, some legal issue. There are so many unknowns right now that if OpenAI was to fold in some way, thousands of companies would go out of business the next day. We are that close to another kind of market bubble burst simply because of the dependencies we have on these types of tools that are still so young in terms of the companies that are supporting them. And that, you know, is a scary thing.
Absolutely. This is so true that I tell you one of the story I've been facing in the last month, actually. I was discussing with the founder, which is building an agent, which is fully based on OpenAI. And I told him, look, but, you know, why don't you test this thing with another model? You should be model independent. Because, first of all, you don't know how this technology performs with another model. Because this is the truth. LLM are different. They are trained in a different way. So they can respond in a different way. But also, you know, if you have been testing with different model, you are more versatile. You are more robust. And I remember that he was looking at me just like I was saying something which had no real reason, no? And at a certain point, I felt stupid. Because I said, okay, but I'm telling this guy what I believe, but he's not able to get after me. He will never be able to get after me until he will understand himself. Normally through a failure, because, you know, these are mistakes are made for us to learn something.
Yeah.
It's incredibly true what you say. It's really very true.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to put it into a different context. You know, I'm thinking through, like, you know, imagine if you wanted to open up a restaurant and you wanted to serve you know, hamburgers, whatever, and the supplier that you're getting your hamburgers from went out of business. What would you do? Oh, I need to get new hamburgers. Where are you going to get them from, right? It's the same concept. We just have to sometimes simplify it or put it into a different context. But, you know, the other argument on this is, why are you using anybody else's LLMs? Why don't you create your own model? Like, it's not hard. This is not hard to do anymore.
Absolutely.
You know, I would argue that if you're using somebody else's model, maybe you're too lazy to run a business, because, you know, you could go out there, the technology and the implementation and the infrastructure to create whatever you want to create is already out. How do you think that OpenAI is doing it? They did it, right? So I think sometimes those reality checks, you know, especially from your perspective, are valid. And if they listen or not, that's on them.
Is their problem. So we kind of complete our conversation. But I want to ask you a very simple question. As you have been working in marketing, how do you suggest to live this AI era in the marketing department? What is the wise way of using it and, you know, and live with it? What is the best way of using these tools without getting caught by their limitation and by their problem.
Yeah. The number one way to leverage generative AI and AI right now is for brainstorming, market research, idea generation, right? So you could ask it a question like, hey, we're thinking about expanding into a different market. Here's the market, here's the demographic, but we're not really sure what a good approach might be. What is our messaging? Here's our existing messaging. How could we change that messaging? How can we adapt to reach this new market? Is there anything else that we've not talked about that could be relevant in exploring this new market?
So you are talking about a thinking mate, basically.
I kind of look at ChatGPT or any other LLM as being a collaboration partner. A lot of times, like if you and I were in the same room, we would be having a great conversation, maybe a slice of pizza and a cup of cappuccino, and we would be maybe on a whiteboard, and we would be jotting down ideas on the whiteboard, going back and forth, collaborating, brainstorming, and coming up with whatever the business idea was. But since you're not here, and I need somebody very smart to help me, I can log into ChatGPT, and I can say, let's brainstorm in the exact same way that I would with you on a whiteboard. And that is probably the best benefit because it will help unlock ideas. It will help unlock a strategy. It will help unlock next steps. It will provide you with some sort of calendar. But that's about as far as I go. I don't really think AI, and I don't use AI specifically within my marketing campaigns. I don't use it for cold emails. I don't use it for advertising. I don't use it for SEO. I don't use it for all of these other marketing types of things because it doesn't work. As much as anybody out there wants to say that it does work, it doesn't work. And so if you really care, going back to the consumer side of this that we were opening up with, if you really care about building relationships better with your consumers, then maintaining some level of human connection, being able to actually have conversations with customers to understand what they want, how we can help them, how we can develop marketing that better supports them. All of those things are going to require something other than artificial intelligence. And so as a purely, we'll call it brainstorming tool, a strategy enabler, that's where you want to focus. The automation and all of the other areas, that's just a cheap way to get out of actually doing work that matters.
Yeah, I agree. I strongly agree with you. It's an incredible tool to let your brain work and also test what your brain produces. But out of that, I found that it's very predictable, it's not... And also, artificial intelligence get us lazy.
Yeah.
We lose control of what really matters, which is the customer. Getting to know him, talk with him, discuss with him, which is the most precious thing for someone that, is trying to sell, is trying to bring something on the market. Knowing the market, but not through an LLM, is the most important way. Talk with the customer is crucial.
Completely agree.
Chris, thank you very much. You have been invaluable. I would like to try again to say the title of your book, if I'm able to spell it correctly. Infailible.
You nailed it.
I nailed it. Okay,
yes.
Because there is a component which is failure that must, get out, which is also the mirror of the content of the book. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode. Follow the show so you don't miss any episode. And remember, for those looking for the secret sauce, there is none in the soup.